Hello, I'm Christina with The Turned Leg, and I am so excited you are here because the IOD, Iron Orchid Designs Spring collection for 2025 has released, and I have some really fun projects for you. Now, if you want to see all of the collection, head over to my website at shoptheturnedleg.com to check everything out, see detailed pictures. But let's take a look at my first project. I found this sweet little basket while I was thrifting. Maybe you even remember me picking it up on a recent thrift haul, and I felt it would be the perfect thing for this project and to use the brand new mold from IOD. This vintage basket, when I saw it, inspired me. You know, I love vintage, as you can tell from my booth at Plaza Antiques and Collectibles Mall. I love things kitschy and cool. One of the things I love are basket purses. So I'm going to transform this basket into a vintage style basket purse. The very first step is to paint the basket. And for this project, I'm using one of my favorite paints, DIY Cottage Color paint and top coat in one. The color is juniper. It is absolutely beautiful. And best of all, you have the top coat already in. So you just paint a coat or two and you are done. The paint dried really quickly, so now it is time for the second coat. The nice thing about this paint is it's self-leveling and it just has a beautiful satin finish to it. I want this vintage style purse to be kitschy and cool. And what is cooler than berries? Strawberries, to be exact. Although the Wild Berries mold, the new one from IOD, has strawberries and blackberries, or you could even use them as raspberries. We're going to stick to the strawberries for this project. If you're using a mold for the first time, I just want to tell you it's really important to put cornstarch in your mold so it will release. Now the medium I'm using for the molds is air-dried clay from IOD, but you can use these molds for so many things like resin and even for making soap. And you can even bake in them. I've even made chocolates in an IOD mold. And if you want to check that out, you can watch the video above. I also put cornstarch in the whole mold. I'm only going to be using the strawberries, so I'm not quite sure why I did that. After you fill it with the cornstarch, you want to kind of dump it out. Make sure to get the excess out before you put in your clay, so that you don't have more than you need. Once again, I'm only going to use the strawberry molds, which is about half of this mold. And here's my air-dried clay. I keep it in a double Ziploc bag. It is the softest clay. It does need to kind of warm up with your hand and make it a little bit more pliable. So when you first get it out, you kind of want to roll it around a little bit. And then you're just going to push it into the mold. And then I trim the excess with my hand as I go. You're going to see how that's done. But you could even use something with a flat surface to really make sure that the bottoms of your molds are flat. After you are finished, you are ready for my favorite step, which is releasing the clay from the molds. And this is quite simple as long as you use cornstarch. Flip it over and then slowly release by bending the silicone mold up. Do keep in mind some of the more delicate areas you need to kind of go slow so they don't break. But this is a lot of fun, and you're also going to be amazed by the detail that is in the mold. See that strawberry there? I had to be really gentle with it. So just go slow, take your time, and you're going to have some beautiful molds. The next step is to position and to glue your molds in place. And maybe I don't do it the best way, but I like to see them where they're going to go. And you have to be really careful because there's a lot of little strawberries here. I set them down where I want them. Don't worry, see that little excess clay? You can cut that off with an X-Acto knife if you want. It does not cause a problem. But I'm going to position them exactly where I want, and then it's time for gluing. When I'm ready to glue, I'm just going to flip it over. For this project, I'm using Titebond wood glue just because that's what I had on hand. I know a bunch of people have talked about other types of glues they prefer. This works well for me, and I'm just kind of spread it out with my finger to make sure it has really good coverage. Now, keep in mind for this whole process, the molds are still wet clay. So you have to be very careful with them. You don't want to smush them or ruin the design in any way. So you want to kind of work carefully, but you want to get things down fairly quickly. One of the things I also do, because I want to avoid my clay cracking, is I want to make sure everything is glued in place, and then I'm going to paint it before the clay dries. You can put any paint or any color. Once again, I'm going to be choosing, and you might be surprised, the same color that I painted the basket, which is Juniper. It is the DIY paint and top coat in one. I just grabbed whatever was closest, and then I do have plans for the strawberries coming up, so stay tuned for that. You can also paint your mold just in a white, so that you don't have to worry about the clay cracking as much, as long as you can get the paint on them while they are drying. And you're gonna notice you have to be very careful as you're painting so you don't smush them, real light pressure. And you also want to make sure you're filling in all of the areas of the mold with the paint, because that slows down the dry time and prevents the cracking. Another thing you're going to see me do in a little bit is that I'm going to make sure to pay close attention to the edges. And remember, we've talked about the overage with the clay. I found if I use my brush with the paint, I can just kind of smush that edge in that had a little excess clay, and also make sure there's a good amount of paint between the mold and what it is resting on. After I was done painting everything the same color, I was really surprised by how much I liked it. Now, you could just add a colored wax or something to make the details pop, but I really liked this monochromatic design. But it wasn't the look I was going for. I was going vintage, and that meant, yes, we needed red strawberries. I'm using DIY paint without the top coat. This color is Carnival Red, and it's an orangey red and just perfect for strawberries. You're also going to see me applying a darker green. That green is called Monet's Garden, and I'm just kind of putting the green on fairly light. I figured the green underneath is also going to pop through. I was using a white. This is beadboard from DIY paint. And then later on in the center of the flowers, you're going to see me adding a yellow. This is actually cake batter, all from DIY paint. This paint will need to be sealed. So once I get done, stay tuned for that. For my next project, to show off another one of the most amazing IOD products, and perhaps one of my favorites, I have this beautiful dresser that desperately needs a makeover. It might not look like it, but the paint is really worn, so I'm going to take off the hardware and just have a little fun and make it pretty. I am using DIY paint. I'm using beadboard, which is the white that you're seeing. It's one of my favorite whites. This is Prom Queen from DIY paint. I'm also using cherry picked off to the side and bohemian blue, and I'm gonna do a blended paint finish. Now, DIY paint in the original formula is the absolute best paint for blending. DIY paint is a clay-based paint, and the clay has to do with why it blends so well. You also have it heavily pigmented, so that means less coats, less work for you, but these colors just glide together. If you want to learn more about how to blend with DIY paint, you can click on the link above. I do highly recommend using a DIY paintbrush. That really helps because the bristles are super soft. And I also will be using a water mister. It is a fine mist spray bottle, and you're going to see me using it throughout. It just kind of helps the paint blend and gets rid of brush strokes. The technique I'm using to blend my colors, I kind of call the dipping technique. I have a palette, which is a paper plate, and I'm just dipping my brush into all the colors that I want at the same time, not really thinking too much about it, and then brushing those colors on and seeing what I get. The whole point of just painting this first layer kind of all fancy, I mean, you have to have a first layer down before you do a blended paint finish so things will stick, but I do it to experiment. That way I can go, oh, well, I like this dark, and I like on the side, there's this light area around the edge I really like. And so then I know that I can replicate that when I'm doing the final second paint layer. And so that's what I'm gonna get working on now. I'm gonna get painting. I'm gonna make it look exactly the way I want. I will tell you, if you're doing a blended paint finish, if you get it the way you like it, don't keep playing with it and painting on it. Just stop. In fact, sometimes it's good to stop and walk away because you can ruin your piece too with too much working. So I'm gonna get on this. Let's get the second coat. Once the paint has dried, I'm actually gonna mist the piece with a little bit of water using my fine mist spray bottle. And the reason for that is I'm actually reactivating the paint underneath. All of this paint is water-based, and you can reactivate it as long as you haven't sealed it, even days later. So all of the colors will start blending, even the ones underneath. And I just absolutely love this. Now I'm mixing to get the color and the look I want, and I'm telling you, the paint, the brush, and the water are key for the look you want. Also opening the drawers, making sure I get a matching color inside all of the nooks and crannies, and I'm gonna let this piece fully dry. While that was drying, I was able to turn my attention back to my strawberry purse and to really make these colors pop. Remember, this is DIY paint that does not have a sealer, so I'm applying a clear wax to seal. I'm also going to be applying a dark wax to just make all the details pop. The dark wax will settle in the lower areas, and it will really make a difference and give the mold a little dimension. You also will wipe back what you don't want to stick on. So I'm using a lot of dark wax, but I always wipe it right back. The dresser is now totally dry, and so I'm applying DIY Big Top, which is my favorite top coat. It is all natural, water-based, non-yellowing, no VOCs. It actually has no bad fumes or odors or anything like that, so you don't have to crack a window. I'm painting indoors, and you just brush it on. You will see the color change as I brush it on, and that is because DIY paint that is a clay-based paint lightens as it dries, and so when you apply the sealer, you will see it kind of darken up and kind of come back to life. I applied 2 coats of Big Top and I let it dry overnight before the next step, and that is applying the brand new Lost Garden IOD transfer. I am so in love with this transfer. It is just beautiful. There's brambles, there's roses, there's berries. I was very drawn to it. The best part about this transfer too is with all these sheets, you can really customize the design you want, and you're gonna see me doing this. If you've never tried an IOD transfer before, it is like the coolest sticker you've ever seen, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They're so easy to apply. Here I am trying to figure out my design. Luckily, there's grid paper. You can line things up. See that white paper on the back? You do not want to take that off because your transfer will start to stick without it, but you can kind of eyeball things as long as you're keeping the white paper on the back. So I'm cutting things to size and deciding where I want it. And soon I'm going to have a little help. Keep looking in the right-hand corner. See that little fluff ball? That is my puppy, George. And every time I'm working on a project, he loves to watch and help me. When you've figured out what part you want where, you can then remove the backing. I do it all at once, but some people like to do it little by little. You can also tape it with painter's tape in place so you don't have to worry about it falling off or slipping out of place. I am also using a tool that comes with The IOD transfer, it's like a little plastic applicator, and you literally will rub the transfer right on. As you are rubbing, you're going to pull off that section with the grid paper, and you want to go slow while you're doing this. If any of it is still sticking to the grid paper, put it back down and then just press a little bit harder. But these transfers are pretty much foolproof. They are so simple unless you go too fast, and even if you do, I've had them where they pop loose. It's pretty simple to line back up your transfer, put it in place, and get everything to kind of push down where it needs to. The other great thing about IOD is you can build your own design. You can cut parts and put them places and put things where they need to go to fit the piece you're working on. Now I'm working on the top drawer, and I'm just adding another little detail. I'm using the applicator. I'm pulling up the grid paper slowly. You're also going to see the whole thing slip. So I just want to show you I'm human too and make mistakes. I was able to line everything back up. I don't usually use painter's tape. Maybe I should. I would say the first time you try it, it might be a good idea, but it did not have any major issues. Just go slow. Once you're done applying your transfer, you can actually use the grid paper to kind of rub over the whole area to make sure your transfer is completely down and adhered to your piece. Then you need to seal where the transfer is. Remember, this whole piece was already sealed, so I'm good, but the area of the transfer needs to be sealed. And when I finished the whole project, George was exhausted. One of my new total passions are junk journals, and I have just started. You take an old book, you can make it pretty however you want. Yes, the book pages are still in here, so this is not really a junk journal. It's actually called an altered book journal, but there's going to be more of these on my channel and over on my Facebook page if you are interested in learning more. This journal is all set on the outside, and today I want to start to think about what I'm going to do on the inside pages. You can create this journal for anything you want. Some people actually use these for planners by using the pages that exist. That is different from a junk journal where normally you add pages. One of my favorite stamps that I have been using on both of my journals, and I'm probably going to use all the way throughout, is from Iron Orchid Designs. It's actually the apothecary labels. It is a mini stamp, which was brand new a while ago, and it has 4 whole sheets. These 4 sheets allow you to write anything. You have different fonts, Roman numerals, and a whole bunch of other fun things that you can use. But with the new IOD release, I am excited to show you more mini stamps. We have insignia, which I'm going to open for you for the very first time, velveteen, and countryside memoirs. I think these are perfect for my journals. We're going to do a little bit of stamping and kind of see how things look and get inspired. The first one we're going to open up is velveteen, and I just love that they come all together in this little case. Now, there are some beautiful stamps. Look at how rich these look. So excited to see how these work. When you're prepping your stamp for the first time, you want to make sure you take a second to do this, and you only need to do this the first time. Grab your sanding block. This is a fine grit sanding block. You want to go in one direction, and then in the other direction. Only do this the first time. That makes sure that it gets all of the factory gunk off of the stamps, and you'll have really good adhesion. This plastic cover, make sure you keep. It'll give you a mount for your stamps. What's also nice is, do you see, it tells you the name of the stamp. It also shows you where each one goes, so you know if one is missing. And they're also blue in color. Let's just do some stamping and see what we can make and hopefully get inspired for my future journal projects. I already have inked up my stamp pad, and all of this is IOD ink, which is just wonderful. It's archival. We'll see if I have enough ink in here, or if I need to add some more. I always test before I work on my projects just to kind of see. Oops, we know we got ink on there. But this is just a test. And let's put this down And then we're going to tickle the stamp. The other option you can do is use a brayer to make sure you're getting good contact. And all of these products I sell on my website, shoptheturnedleg.com. Oh my goodness. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? This is IOD insignia. You also have all of the capital letters in different fonts. And then you have all of these that you can put the capital letters in. So you can personalize and monogram things. And here is just one little thing I made with the insignia stamp. And I like coloring in my stamps with colored pencils or watercolors. Let's take a look at the other stamps. Next up, Countryside Memoirs. And I think this one is so perfect for journals or anything small that you're working on. This one is the one I am so excited about. We have birds, we have bows, we have banners, little flower details. Look at all of these. So pretty. And of course, you could use these with letters too. You could probably put an insignia right in the center there. Flowers, just the little trim pieces. And then look at these. Isn't it absolutely beautiful? Love the butterfly. Okay, let's take a look at these. Oh, so pretty. And here's just a glimpse at how I'm using some of the new stamps in my journal. Now keep in mind, this is my work. This is my journal to kind of inspire me to play, to just be creative, to do what I like. And this might not be your style, but I hope it will inspire you and give you ideas on how you can use all these new IOD stamps. The projects are complete. Now let's take a look at how they have turned out. Let's start off with the thrift store find turned into an inspired vintage basket purse. I really think this one turned out even better than I expected. Although I could have kept it monochromatic, I love the pops of colors, and I'm going to have so much fun with this piece. I think I'm going to be using it as a sewing basket to keep my sewing supplies in. But I think I saved the best for last. This piece really needed a makeover, and I am loving the DIY paint, blended paint finish, but especially the Lost Garden transfer from IOD. It just makes this piece sing. And this piece is headed to my booth at Plaza Antiques and Collectibles Mall in Lincoln Park, Michigan, and we'll be looking for a new home. Thank you guys so much for joining me here, the IOD collection. What do you think? I'm curious in the comments which one of the projects was your favorite. Now, if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I do thrift hauls, painted furniture. I show off my antique booth and antique booth reset. I also teach other booth owners some of the tips and tricks that I've learned. And I've also started working with altered book journals. So if that sounds like fun, we would love to have you. Thank you again for watching. Now get out there to salvage, repurpose, and create.